It used to be a place outside the walls of the city normally, where people used to gather around to sell stuff, like a market or a fair. So of course everyone gathers around there to have a chat. Most of the cities in Portugal have a Rossio area. Ours in Lisbon is called Peter IV Square. The guy over there in the statue that you can see, he was the king of Portugal for a while. He was the first king to ever rule under a constitution in Portugal from 1822. And he was also known to be the first emperor of Brazil. He was the one that gave independence to Brazil from the Portuguese Empire in 1822, and he ruled in there as their Peter I. Now, talking about Brazil, there's something, if you have been to Brazil, there's something you probably recognize from Rio de Janeiro. If you take a look at the beautiful design of the cobblestones of the squares in Lisbon, it's the same they have in Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. Well, the first place ever to be built with the cobblestones in a wave pattern like this was right here where we are, in Rossio, in the mid-1800s. People used to get seasick when they pass it, it is said, which I think it's really cute, but it became a symbol of Portugal in the world. So if you visit former Portuguese colonies, imagine Goa in India, Brazil, many places in Africa like Angola or Macau, even in China, you will find the cobblestone streets, we call it Calçada Portuguesa, as a symbol of Portugal and the Portuguese Empire. It's a nightmare when it rains, but we keep it because they look so good. Up that hill, can you see the ruins of a building over there? That used to be the Carmel Convent, now an archaeological museum, but built as a convent in the 14th century. It's partially destroyed, as you can see. The roof collapsed in the great earthquake of Lisbon of 1755. And let me tell you, we cannot talk about Lisbon history and story without talking about this earthquake, because it was not just another earthquake. Those we have frequently. This one is known to be the biggest earthquake of Europe's history. We believe it was a 9.0 in the Richter scale, and around 80 to 9% of Lisbon city got completely destroyed. If that wasn't enough, the earthquake was followed by a tsunami that destroyed what was left, and then Lisbon was burning for 5 days non-stop. So as you can imagine, this was a changing point in our story. It was a changing point in this city, and being the biggest disaster ever, it was also an opportunity to build the city from scratch. And so the city we're going to explore today, the downtown, was all built up after this earthquake. I will tell you how. Also, let me tell you, the earthquake happened in the 1st of November. That means All Saints' Day. That means the biggest holiday in for the Catholic Church. So Portugal is a very Catholic country, and especially then, if it was even bigger. So that means everyone from the outskirts of Lisbon was in the city, inside the churches, celebrating All Saints' Day. So it was a terrible disaster. We believe the casualties in Lisbon are calculated between 50,000 and 90,000 people. And this could be half of the population of Lisbon that just disappears in 5 minutes. Imagine that. This earthquake was so strong, it was felt until Finland. It destroyed Morocco, 10,000 people died in the north of Africa. It destroyed ports in Galloway, it destroyed the Caribbean. People died in Brazil of this tsunami. And this is why it is considered today one of the worst world catastrophes. 1755, 1st of November, a date that no Portuguese can forget. Now, we are walking to the Shoemaker Street. The streets in the downtown of Lisbon are separated by professions to be easier to collect the taxes. And on my right side, you will see a very interesting building. It's called Animatógrafo do Rossio. It was one of the first movie theaters of Lisbon, and it still keeps the original facade, the beautiful Art Deco from the beginning of the 1900s. Today, let me tell you, it's not a movie theater anymore. It's something called a peep show. If you don't know what it is, you need to Google it. I cannot say it live, okay? Now, as we are walking through these streets, you will notice that even the streets that don't seem to have nothing special have somehow always a surprise. And that's one thing I like about Lisbon. Whenever it's not as organized as most of the capitals in Europe, I feel like whenever you give a turn, you can find something new. Being a Roman gallery, a relic from a mosque from the Moorish times, or Art Deco buildings. And so that's what makes Lisbon, I think, very different, interesting, surprising. And I don't know, if you ever been to Lisbon, tell me in the comments what was your favorite part to explore. Was it Alfama, the downtown, Belém, Sintra? Maybe you have been to Sintra, which is nearby Lisbon, of course. Let me know there so we can prepare the next tours regarding to what your interests are about Lisbon. You don't remember, give it a like if you did my tours. I want to know that you're there. And talking about surprises, you turn around the corner and this is what you can find. The beautiful elevator of Santa Justa, one of the top attractions of Lisbon. This one was built in 1902 as a regular public transport to help us with the hills. I don't know if you know, but Lisbon has at least 7 hills. So if you have been here, you know the feeling in Lisbon is always going up somehow. So we have many hidden and not so hidden elevators to help us go through it. So this one here, built in 1902, became an attraction because it was built by a student of Gustave Eiffel from the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and in the same style of architecture as the Eiffel Tower. So of course, in a normal year, this would be packed with people, a line of hours for people to get up, to get the views from the viewpoint up the elevator. One good thing about the hills, we have amazing good points in absolutely every corner, and this was one of the most popular ones. Now, we are in the center of the downtown of Lisbon, Baixa Pombalina. The name Pombalina comes from the man that had a project, the idea to build the downtown like it is today. Remember, we were talking, it got destroyed in the earthquake, so it had to be rebuilt after. And that man is known as the Marquis of Pombal. He was the prime minister, he became the prime minister of Portugal after the earthquake, because what happened was that our king, Joseph I, he survived the earthquake, but when he came back to Lisbon, he was in Belém, when he came back to Lisbon, he looked at his beloved city completely destroyed to the ground, he became traumatized, he became claustrophobic, and he could never ever live inside walls or under a roof again. But that was not the problem. The problem was that he didn't know what to do with this city. The 5 minutes before, one of the richest capitals of Europe, 5 minutes later, a complete ruin. So he doesn't know what to do. He decides to run away and left us here in despair. He moved out to the countryside to live inside a tent. Now, the man of the hour was the one that became the prime minister, the Marquis of Pombal. He was the one with the ready answer. He starts working immediately in the relief effort. He had a saying, and now what? No one knows what to do. And he had a saying that was, now we bury the dead and we heal the living. And he started right after the earthquake. First they tackled the fires and they buried the bodies everywhere as fast as possible to avoid disease to spread. And I mean literally everywhere. The whole downtown of Lisbon was built on top of the piles of bodies that were buried here after the earthquake times. And then he put the army surrounding the whole city of Lisbon to avoid people from running away out of the city. Because everyone wants to run away of this disaster, but he knew he would need everyone's help to build the city again. Otherwise, we'd still be doing it today. And even with everyone's help, it took us more than 100 years to finish this city. And then they had the architecture and engineering plans for Lisbon. And this is where it gets very interesting. They had 2 main options on the table. The cheapest and fastest option was to kind of recycle the city, which means from the foundations and the ruins still standing, they would build the exact same city we had before, just on top of that. But this could be dangerous because, as they learned, we are in a seismic area. We are supposed to have one big earthquake like that every 250 years. So, anytime now. The expensive option was the opposite. It was to destroy everything still standing in Lisbon, clear the city completely, and start a new city from scratch. And they want to build here the first earthquake-proof city in the world. Now, this is the option they chose. So first they came up with this, first they destroyed everything, and then they came up with this rational grid line with much wider streets and much wider squares that you see where we are right now. If you are in a modern city today, you probably don't think this is that wide. But for us, in the 1700s, it kind of made no sense because we have no cars. The streets, the cities are much smaller. So people need all the possible space to live. But he said no. If another earthquake happens, if these buildings collapse, it won't destroy all the other ones like a domino effect. If there is a huge fire like before, it won't destroy all Lisbon like it did the first time. And if you need to run away, you need to know where you're going, like in this square that we are. Also, inside the buildings, the innovation was that he created a system called the Pombalin cage, a wooden frame that you put between the concrete walls of the buildings for them to become flexible and earthquake-proof. Not only all the buildings of Lisbon were built with this technique, but also the whole downtown where we are. The city was built 12 feet higher, standing on top of wood to become earthquake-proof. So we are still standing in the same structure from the 1700s. So imagine this, Lisbon is actually the first earthquake-proof city in the world. We used to be very progressive. Now, another thing about the architecture of this city. If you look at the beautiful buildings covered in tiles where we are now, Portugal is now the capital of tiles in the world. That's a thing, but this is actually not Portuguese at all. This is Arabic. So I was mentioning before Moorish relics, mosques or something. The Moors, people from the north of Africa, were here from 711 until the 12th century in Lisbon. So that means we still have many remains and influences from those times, from the Arabic in our language, from the Moors, the Muslims, and this is one of the remains. Of course, this is not from the Moorish times, but to build with the tiles, it is. We call it azulejo, that comes from the Arabic for polished stone. Now, when the Christians came, the Portuguese conquered Lisbon from the Moors in 1147, immediately they decided to destroy everything that was Moorish, Muslim, Arabic. So no more tiles. Only much later, in the 16th century, the Portuguese king went to travel in Spain. He saw the tiles in Seville, and he's like, oh, this looks great, let's have it back. And he starts building everything with tiles again, but with an interesting difference. Because the Moors were Muslims, the Muslims cannot represent human figures or animals anywhere. Only God can do that. So their tiles are going to be the ones like this, with geometric patterns or some flowers. The Christians, on the other hand, the Portuguese, they start telling you stories in the tiles. So it's common for you to see here huge tiles panels showing you the history of Portugal, passages of the Bible, stories of saints, and this is the difference between Moorish and Portuguese Christian tiles, and you can see those everywhere in Lisbon and in Portugal, really. This is actually very clever. The Moors used to build like this because it keeps the houses cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. We have also the oldest tiles in Europe. You can see those in Sintra, original from the 16th century. I really recommend that. If you visit Lisbon, you have to go to Sintra, I hope you know. And in the National Palace, you can see some of the original ones that King Manuel brought from Seville at the time in the 16th century. Now, enough with the architecture. You know already how this city was built. And as you can see, in the center downtown, it's a bit quieter now, as you can imagine why, but this is the area where most of the restaurants of Lisbon center are. So let's talk about food. Let me ask you a question. Do you know what is the most typical dish, the most typical food that we Portuguese eat in Portugal? I will give you a couple of seconds for you to answer, and you'll think about the prize later, okay? So it's something that we have 1001 recipes to cook. It's something we are completely obsessed. I think it's a genetic problem right now. I dream about it when I'm out of the country for too long. I swear to you this is true. And the answer is codfish. If you got that, congratulations. If you said sardines, well, you get the second prize, but codfish is definitely our national obsession. To give you an idea, we eat 70,000 tons of codfish per year. And just on Christmas Eve, we eat, the Portuguese, 5,000 tons in that night of codfish. And the stupid thing is, it's all imported. It's the only fish we cannot catch in our coast, the Atlantic coast, and it became our national obsession. I cannot explain you why, but we just love it. So there's a codfish recipe for everyone, and you should definitely try. If you think codfish is boring, think again. We are experts in cooking the codfish, so I'm sure you'll find a recipe that you like. This is, for instance, a shop that sells the codfish cakes, one very traditional and popular snack. Even the snacks we make with codfish, because the recipes for the meals are not enough. Another traditional snack is the roasted chestnuts and other things that happen on the streets of Lisbon. We are now heading to the main street of Lisbon, called Rua Augusta, where I will show you one of the gates of the old city of Lisbon built after the earthquake. By the way, if you are watching us, don't forget to tell us what you think about the tour. If you are enjoying it, what do you want to know about everything I just said? If you try the codfish, please let me know. It means a lot to us Portuguese that people like our codfish. So let me know. We are almost going to the biggest square of Lisbon. This is a street where most of the living statues are, musicians, vendors of, you name it, anything you can imagine, and random naked guys like you saw it before. It's a place for shopping, it's a place for the restaurants, but the most touristy street. For instance, 3 days a year, speaking about again the mixture of cultures and the different people that were here, 3 days a year they open a hole in the ground right in the street that you're seeing, for you to go down and see the Roman city of Lisbon, the Roman gallery. So the Romans were here 400 years BC, and we still have some remains of those times. It's impressive. So whenever you build something here, a hotel, normally, you always find a Roman city. You have to stop it, preserve it, make it a museum. And this is one of the places where you can actually see the whole Roman city we have from those times. It's really interesting. Unfortunately, for now, only 3 days a year, but they are trying to drain the waters for us to be able to see it more often. This is the place where you can take the picture of Lisbon with the tram 28, but unfortunately, we didn't catch it. Not perfect timing today, but I'm sure you know the little tram, yellow cars that go around the city. The tram 28 became super popular because it goes around the whole city of Lisbon. And with the hills of Lisbon and trams from the last century, it can really get the roller coaster feeling. So it's one of the favorite things to do for the foreigners here. So we are going to pass through the Triumphal Arch almost. By the way, why do we have a monumental gate of Lisbon like this massive Arc de Triomphe version here? Remember, this was built in the 1700s, beginning of the 1800s, after that great earthquake. Back then, Portugal was not a tiny dot in the map like today. Portugal is one of the greatest empires in the world. So our empire starts in the 1400s, the Overseas Empire, and until 99, we still got Macau as part of Portugal, kind of a colony. So that means in the 1700s, in the 1800s, it was still our golden age. So of course, Lisbon is one of the, before the earthquake, especially one of the richest capitals of Europe, one of the most important and impressive places of Lisbon. So after the earthquake, we still want to spend our last coins and building a great city like we have today. So at the time, this was made to be impressive, monumental, to bring you, to welcome you guys in. And also keep in mind that people used to arrive always by the river, by the sea and then the river. So this would be the perfect place to welcome you, everyone in. Again, when I say everyone, it almost is literally everyone. Lisbon was one of the most cosmopolitan cities of Europe. We used to have sailors, traders, fishermen, people from everywhere in the world living or coming just to trade and to stay a couple of days in the city. You would hear all the possible languages in Lisbon, and a very interesting place, I would say, to be here at those times. We are almost reaching Comércio Square, and I hope you can get a glimpse of the beautiful views of the Tagus River. It's a bit foggy today. On your left, if you can check that detail, that tower belongs to the Cathedral of Lisbon. It's the oldest church of Lisbon from 1147. Of course, it was recovered many times, but that is also, we call, the Gate of Alfama. And let me mentioning it is again, Alfama is one of the most interesting places of Lisbon area that you absolutely need to know and see. So being virtually or being physically when you can travel again, make sure to put that in your list. As if I have my guests watching me live, they know I'm completely passionate and crazy about Alfama, so they know what I'm talking about, because for sure I made them go to explore the beautiful narrow streets of Alfama. Let us know if you have been there and what you think about it. And we are now entering the great Comércio Square. Praça do Comércio, Commerce Square. It was kind of not a market, but it would be the storage house for all the former colonies of Portugal, for us to keep everything we brought from the colonies, being the spices, textiles, slaves. So we used to have the house of Goa, the house of Angola, the house of Brazil. And later this became known as the Palace Square, the Rei do Paço, because our king decides to build a second palace over here, well, another palace over here, and so this became known as the Royal Palace Square. until today. You will see when we get closer, watch out, you will see many Portuguese flags still around this square, and because some of the ministries of Portugal are still in here, not the parliament, but some of the government offices. So this means this is a very political square. Many demonstrations happen here, political speeches, you name it. You can see the Portuguese flags now as we are passing. It was also here, being called the Royal Palace Square, that we kind of killed some members of the royal family. King Carlos Charles was killed in 1908, was killed, and his son as well, and with that we implanted the Republic 2 years later. So from 1910 we have been a republic because we killed the king right here where we are. His younger son survived, but just for 2 years he could keep the monarchy alive. I think now it's time for you to see the beautiful triumphal arch from this side, the beautiful gate of Lisbon I was explaining you before. This took us almost 200 years to be finished, so it means a lot to us that finally is ready. So you can see some Portuguese heroes welcoming you in. The guy facing us here in front of us, the kind of chubby guy, he's one that you probably know, Vasco da Gama. He was one of the most important sailors of all times, and he was the first one to go from here to India by the sea in 1498. This is considered by historians the discovery of that century. After the Vasco da Gama trip, the world is finally connected through the oceans. He starts, it is said, globalization. So of course he's staying there welcoming you in. On the other side of Vasco da Gama, the right side, you have someone that you already know, Marquis of Pombal. Do you remember who he was? He was the one that rebuilt the Pombal in downtown. So of course he took advantage and built a statue to himself as well. This is one of the largest squares of Europe. It used to be a parking lot. And finally they said, oh, maybe we should use this for something that looks better. Over here, I think you can see the image of the statue, of King Joseph I, the first equestrian statue of Portugal, one of the first ones ever in the world. And King Joseph, if you remember, is that king that abandoned us here during the earthquake times. How does he get a statue in the main square of Lisbon? Well, he was the king, so there's not many options. But we look at this statue today and we see it in such a way, we tell it's a joke to ourselves. So we allow it because we think it's a joke on the king. So if you see, first he's turning his back on his people like he did in real life. Then, instead of sitting in a war horse like with a big beast with an armor, he's sitting in a fat pony full of party elements. The horse has a ribbon on his tail, the king has a party hat, instead of a sword he has a kid's toy in his hand. And also, the base of the statue is full of snakes, like a trader would have snakes. Really weird. So we think it was on purpose to be a joke on the king that left us here. Okay, we're almost reaching the Tagus River and it's time for me to check if we already have some more questions. Let's hope no more technical issues for now, but good one. How can we know more about the age of discoveries? Very good question. So that has to be the best place, I would say, in Belém. Belém, it's a parish nearby Lisbon, and you can reach it like 10 minutes on a train, 7 minutes on a train, and it's where you can see original monuments from the age of discoveries, like the Monastery of Jeronimus, the Belém Tower. It's the place where Vasco da Gama and other sailors, navigators left to discover the world. So it's a very interesting place, full of information. And if you're interested, of course, we will have a tour for sure in Belém, because it's one of the most beautiful places nearby the center of Lisbon, with original monuments from the 1500s. So it's pretty impressive. Now, we are almost reaching our final stop by the river there. This is called the Column Pier. It used to be, again, like the port of Lisbon before Belém was the big thing. So many ships left from here. The ones, when we go closer, you will see there are some letters on the columns, and there is a very interesting name, Salazar. Salazar was the name of our main dictator in Portugal. Salazar was in power for 36 years, and we don't keep statues of him, we don't keep his name anywhere. This is one of the few places where you can actually see the name of the Prime Minister, the dictator Salazar, and the president at the time. It was from here that he left in a first visit of state to the African colonies at the time. And so somehow we keep this piece of history with Salazar's name in the columns over here, always guarded by some seagulls and the perfect place to watch the sunset. Today we probably won't have much sunset, but I hope you can take a glimpse of it. You can also see right now the bridge of Lisbon, the red bridge of Lisbon. It looks like another one, and if you're saying Golden Gate Bridge, think again. It's a copy of the Oakland Bay Bridge in San Francisco. We call ours April 25th, and this is the date we celebrate the Freedom Day, the Liberty Day, after the 48 years dictatorship, the longest in Europe that we lived here in Portugal. So in 1974, we finally had a revolution and we ended the dictatorship, and the bridge is to be called Salazar, but like I said, we raised these names and we call it now 25th of April. On the other side of the bridge, I think you can see Christ the King statue, a very famous statue, a copy of Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. And ours was built in 1959 to thank God he left us out of the Second World War. And it's a smaller version of the Brazilian one. It gives great views over Lisbon. So now, at our last stop, I'm really excited I could do this with you, show you a bit of my favorite city. Let me tell you something. This is a place of gathering. So this is why I wanted to stop here. It's a place where people from around the world used to come and visit Lisbon, and that's what you just did. So in the best possible way nowadays, that's what we just did. I hope you like this experience. I'm still going to check one more last question, so you can see we want to talk to you. And what do we have here? Okay, is there a beach in Lisbon? Kind of. If you consider the river a beach, there is a beach, this kind of beach here, but it's just to take pictures, okay? We don't swim in this river normally. Even though now waters are cleaner, we have the dolphins back in the Tagus River. This year we have no cruise ships passing by, so we have dolphins. So if you are lucky, we can still see them here every now and then. Now, if you did like this tour, guys, give us your feedback. It really means the world to us. Give us a like, give us a share, tell us your thoughts, what you would like to see in the next tours. We are here for you to show you the cities. If you can give a small contribution, a small donation, even better. If not, it's free to share our videos. So please do that. It was really a pleasure to be here. Subscribe to our channels for you not to miss the next tours. I am Rita, signing off from Lisbon.